think that it's important to create a space of safety because you're never really going to get everything that you can from your team if you haven't created that space of safety where they feel like they can be open, where they can admit mistakes, and they're not going to go walk into that conversation with fear, that they feel very welcome because you care about me, I care about you, this is a good relationship, and there's safety there. It just goes so far. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of Project She Leads. I'm Nori Joaquin, your host for this series. If this is your first time joining, welcome. I am so glad that you decided to stop by and watch us. Well, I cannot believe that it is already episode 4. The last 3 weeks have been filled with wisdom, insight, and such great conversation. If you have joined us for all of these episodes, I trust that you have been able to take something away from each and every session. Well, here we are. It's our final episode, and this episode is not going to disappoint. We are going to be diving into leading self and leading others. And I am here with my special guest from episode 1, Sophie Estrella. Welcome back, Sophie. I'm so glad to have you here today.
I'm so glad to be back and really, really excited. I'm sad that this is ending, to be honest.
I know.
It's gonna be so good. So
awesome. I did forget to mention that if you have missed any of our previous episodes, I will link them below. So you're not going to want to miss out on any of those. So let's dive in. Let's talk about leading self. So why do you think this is something that is so important?
Bottom line is, if you can't lead self, you can't lead other people. It is
there
so
you go.
hard to do that. You're fake. Just to be honest and blunt, right? You have to be able to control and know yourself before you can lead other people. And I know people try it, but I think it's hard to be a successful leader when you haven't learned to lead yourself.
Yeah, I think that is so true. And I think it's so easy for us when we think about leading, we often think just about leading others. And we tend to neglect the most important person that needs to be led, and that is ourselves.
Yes.
So one of the very first ways that you can do this is by having a mentor. So why is a mentor so important in leading self?
So mentors are so great because they see things that we don't see. They also help to push you to make decisions and do things that on a normal basis you probably wouldn't do. I know the mentors in my life are so influential in so many areas. Even talking about recognizing your own, I don't want to say flaws in yourself, but there are weaknesses we have that mentors sometimes can kind of help you navigate and help you be able to be a stronger leader, right? Yeah. So it's so great and important to have one. If you can get a mentor, I always suggest to do that.
Yeah. So at the company that I currently work for, they have a mentorship program. And last year I decided to sign up for it as a mentee. And so it was about a 6-month-long program. And during the whole entire program, it was up to the mentee to, provide the direction. So we came into the meeting knowing what we wanted to talk about, having an agenda, what we wanted the outcome, what do I want to gain from this relationship? And so one of the ways that it really helped me was just having a really difficult conversation with my manager because I wanted to move forward in my career, move up, but I really wasn't sure the best way to do that just because of the company. Certain companies sometimes have policies, they have certain ways that they do things just based on their culture. And I wasn't really clear on what I needed to do in order to move forward. Right. And my manager was not someone who actually had that conversation with me. So she kind of helped me, gave me the courage to have that conversation. She gave me tips on some things that, I could walk into that conversation with, certain things I should say, certain things that I should ask. And a result, I had that conversation. It went so well. And it actually helped me because I really was on the verge of thinking, okay, well, my manager is not asking. So maybe he doesn't see something or isn't thinking that way. So maybe it's time to move on. And I avoided all of that just by having this conversation with him.
Yeah, I think that that's what happens with a lot of people too, is because we're afraid to have those conversations and we don't have anyone edging us on to kind of do that. We jump out of something prematurely and end up really gaining either a great skill or even improving a relationship because we're like, I can't do this, so let me just walk away. Or we already assume what that other person is thinking.
Yes.
And they're not even there. I mean, I know half the time, even as I'm a leader, sometimes people will come and ask me something and they'll say, I thought you thought whatever. And I'm like, buddy, I wasn't even there. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm just doing what I got to do, you know? And so when they talk about it, it brings that liberty, first of all, and makes you just a better worker, but also helps that person become a better leader and thinking, okay, next time I need to ask that question.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So good. Yeah. That's so great that your company has that.
Yeah. And being on this side, it also prepared me to make sure that I always ask those questions as well, because it wasn't asked of me. Right. So sometimes it's kind of, when you look at other leaders, you can look at that and think, okay, what not to do, right? So I'm going to make sure that I start operating in the opposite direction because you just saw some disconnect, with yourself. Right. So one of the other areas about leading self, which I think most women are probably going to find impossible, and that is self-care and rest. It's so important, so important.
Yeah, and I learned this the hard way. I love to work. I love work. And I remember going through a time of chest pains and just like physically my body started reacting because I didn't know how to care for myself and rest. So over the years, the last, I would say 5 years, I've adjusted that so much. And some of the things that I've done is pretty much things like simple things. I get my nails done on a consistent basis. I get my hair done more consistently. Whereas before I could go years without getting a haircut, years. And then I started exercising. I do that 3 times a week. I work with a personal trainer. I started boxing of all things. I'm 50 years old boxing. But let me tell you, it is the biggest stress reliever ever. And so those are just some things that I've done over time. And then one of the other things that I do, and I actually teach on this as well, is how to look at your calendar for the year. And before you start filling it with all the businessy stuff that we have, all the extra appointments that just come up and we throw it in there, I already plan out my vacations and my time off all throughout the year. So every month, pretty much, there's pretty much a day that I can look forward to that I know that's going to be a day of rest for me, or something that what I say is filling my tank. Things that are fun, things that I like to do with my family. And so in doing that, I already know throughout the busyness of the month or the week or whatever, that pretty soon I'm going to hit that day that's going to allow me to take that rest. And I think that's so huge for leaders to do. Yeah. To avoid burnout, basically.
Yeah. I love that, because you are using your personal time, your vacation time, and you are then scheduling all of your meetings around your time versus what we often do, and that is to schedule our vacation and that off time around the work schedule. Yeah. But work never ends, the demands never end, and sometimes we end up not having as much time as we would have wanted. I love that. That's so great. Yeah. Some of the things that I try to do to help, relieve stress and kind of bring some rest is I also exercise as well. But sometimes I've actually put it in my calendar, because meetings have a way of creeping up. They'll be suddenly, can you meet today at 11? Or, can you meet today at 2 o'clock? And I work in an environment where other people are able to see my calendar. So if they want to schedule a meeting with me, they can see when I'm free and when I'm not. And so I've had to learn, I need to start scheduling that time so that people don't suddenly schedule a meeting. Yeah. And so it's helped me to stay, consistent, with that. Something else I've just recently started doing, well, I've been like off and on, but really starting to do it more consistently, and that's journaling.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, you hear so much about journaling and why it's important, but I have found it to be more important during times of stress. And that is something that I have been encountering this year. Work has been a lot more stressful than it normally is. And I've had some really difficult days. So I actually recently bought a journal on Amazon. And I don't know if I would recommend it, because there's a lot of foul language, and I didn't know that when I bought it. But I think it's called the Rage Page or the Rage Book. But it's all around venting. And so it has like all of these pictures. It has an anger meter. It has this little picture that says 5 things that make me want to punch my pillow.
That is so great. I get to check that one out, I think.
Yeah,
That's so good.
Yeah, so you're able to go and just vent, but there's another page that's all about ways that you can uncomplicate tomorrow and you can actually write positive things that happened. So it's just a letting out what's stressing you out, what's frustrating you, what's making you angry, but then looking at what was something good that happened today. That's so good. So that you can really take a look at both things. So I love it so much, even though it has a lot of foul language, but I think it's just really helped me to kind of get those emotions out when they actually happen. Since I work remotely, I can quickly grab my book and just start scratching in there if something happens. But it's been really, really great. Another thing I love to do, and that is get massages. I don't think I realize how much stress is in my shoulders until I go to get a massage. And it is like...
And it hurts.
I know. And it's like hard as a rock up here. So it's so good. I feel so much better afterwards and feel like I can just like rest so much better, like get a better night's sleep. So those are really great.
One thing I just really wanted to say really quick is that what I really liked when you said the rage, I think so many times as leaders, we don't have people to vent to. It can be a lonely place at the top, right?
Yeah.
And I hate to say at the top, but that's pretty much when you're leading and you don't necessarily have peers consistently around you. And so having that place is so good to do. So writing it, that's even better because you can say whatever you want.
Yes.
No one cares.
Yeah. And I think that when we don't actually make this a priority, we really are opening the doors to a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression and stress. And as you mentioned, health issues. Yeah. So this really, even though it may seem impossible, I think it's just so crucial to try, even if it's on a small level, but just doing something for yourself. So let's shift gears a little bit here. So just kind of keeping in line though with leading self, another way is investing in yourself. Yes. So what are some ways that you invest in yourself?
So just recently, as I was starting the coaching business online, I have brick and mortar buildings and knew how to run those, but online business was a whole other other way of leading, basically. And so I hired actually a coach to help me through that process and to help me through that. So that was part of an investment I made to help me grow. As leaders, we have to constantly be, and you mentioned this earlier, learners, right? Life learners. And so just investing in ourselves, whether it's even buying a book or something that helps us kind of just continue to grow and learn our craft as a leader, basically, is so huge.
Yeah.
It's so huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the ways too that we can invest in ourselves that might look a little untraditional when you think of, investing in yourself, as you mentioned, reading books, learning new skills, things like that. But investing in yourself can also be investing in relationships. Yes. Making those a priority, thinking about other things that you're passionate about, hobbies that you have, because I feel like relationships, hobbies, they tend to like energize us, and sometimes we can get into our happy place. Yes. And I think it can be very motivating. I think it can give you a new, renewed sense of self. You feel stronger, you feel more capable when you're around people that love you, that care about you, and you're really spending time on things that are truly important, and that's relationships.
Absolutely. That was one of the things I had to even refocus on right after COVID, I think. I realized how much I spent a lot of alone. I'm naturally an introvert, although maybe my conversation doesn't seem that way, but I really am. That's where I gain my energy. And so having to be intentional of meeting with people, that's what prompted me even to start working in women's ministry, was because it surrounded me with women to be able to have those relationships. It's so big. That's so, really important.
Now let's move into talking about leading others. And I think one of the big key things when it comes to leading others is building trust.
Yes. Without trust, that goes along with when you don't know how to lead yourself. If you haven't built trust with other people, there is no way that you're going to be able to lead them. And not only that, it brings up almost a what's the word I'm looking for? A conflictual relationship, because everything you say then is questioned as to what does she mean by that? What is that? In reality is there was nothing meant by that. But because the trust isn't there and there's not an understanding of the leader's heart, that's where there's where misunderstandings and things start to happen.
Yeah, so I actually had a personal experience with this with someone on my team. I inherited a team that had been somewhat damaged by their previous manager. And so it was super important for me to walk in there and to rebuild trust. And so some of the ways I did that was actually taking an interest, asking questions, even as simple as, so how was your weekend?
Yeah.
And then just always following up, if they had children or if prom happened or something, oh, how did that go? How was that? And just always taking an interest in them as a person. The other thing too I did to build trust was to celebrate wins. Sometimes we can just feel so broken, if we haven't had a really good relationship with a prior leader, we can feel broken. So we usually started team meetings with celebrating wins. Tell me something that happened over the last week. Didn't have to be work related. It could have been personal, but just celebrating wins so that you can feel like you are capable and you're sharing that.
That's very powerful too.
Yeah, you're sharing that.
Yeah.
The other thing too was to make sure that I took extra effort to encourage and praise when I did see something done well. Because sometimes, again, that can be really missing if you've had a damaged relationship with the previous leader. And I think it's so important because we all need that. We all need that validation. And so if I saw anything, I made sure to encourage and to praise. And then also sharing my heart, like you mentioned. Here are some expectations, but this is also what I'm going to do for you. And then being consistent with all of those things, which we are going to talk about a little bit later. But those were all the things that I had to do in order to restore trust in a leader. And I feel like it really paid off.
Yeah, it sounds like it did. And I think one of the things too that we have to always remember as a leader, that people are coming in from different experiences.
Yeah.
And so acknowledging that people want to be seen and they want to be heard. And just the steps that you took obviously did that for this person and made a difference, right? And even the product, probably in the production that she did as a worker, as whatever she needed to do, because now it was like, oh, she knows me, she cares about me. Relationship is important in leadership as well. So, and I think you said that so perfectly.
I think that it's important to create a space of safety because you're never really going to get everything that you can from your team if you haven't created that space of safety, where they feel like they can be open, where they can admit mistakes, and they're not going to go walk into that conversation with fear, that they feel very welcome because you care about me, I care about you, this is a good relationship, and there's safety there. It just goes so far. It goes so far.
It's just powerful.
Kind of along with that is being able to develop others, which trust is so necessary. I mean, it's almost difficult to develop other people, but developing others is such a crucial part of leadership.
It definitely is. It's allowing that person. I think it goes back to when in our first episode when we talked about the driver's ed teacher, and you're teaching it all the skills, but there comes a time where you have to step back and let that person take what they've learned and run with it. And so developing them, it's huge. That's something that we really have to do. We have to trust the employees or the members of our team just as much, because we have to be able to say, hey, what we've poured into you, we know now that you can go forward and do that for someone else.
Yeah. And I think that, it's not always about managing the task and responsibilities that someone is doing. In order to develop others, you have to have an understanding of where is it they want to go?
Yeah, that's good.
It's not just about what we want and what we need as leaders to accomplish a goal, but it's also about partnering with our team to help them find success in their goals. And so that was another thing that I did, was to, understand, what is your goals? What are your, when you look at the future, where is it that you want your career to go? And how can I help you get there? Because this is a 2-lane road. And like I said, it's not just about what I need,
And that is huge for a leader to remember. It's not just a one-way street.
Yes.
Oh my God, it's not.
So we talked a little bit earlier about consistency. And not too long ago, I was actually reading this book, and they mentioned that there is a lack of consistency among leaders and that it is really, really big. So why do you think it's so hard for us to be consistent?
I think it's just hard for anybody and everything. Just to be honest, like if you think about exercising, right? Like you gotta be consistent to see results. But then someone puts a Connie's pizza in front of you, and you're like, everything falls apart after that,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So it's just like that in leadership, and we have to be intentional. But part of being consistent too, what I've realized is when you recognize that as a leader, there's a part of you that isn't strong. Like one of the things that I'll say that is difficult. Like I'm not big at, not that I'm not big at it. I want to do it. I just don't remember it. Celebrating people's birthdays or when they've been at work a year and it's their anniversary. Mm-hmm. So I actually have another person in my organization that's wonderful at that, loves it. So I asked her to keep tabs on that stuff and to give them, celebrate. I gave her like some cash to be able to purchase whatever. And so now my employees are getting both, but from two different people, because I know that's not something I'll be consistent on, but someone else is.
Yes.
So it's recognizing that as well. And then, and doing the best you can, because consistency can be hard. It can be.
It really does take so much effort to remain consistent and a lot of forethought.
Yes.
Because it's easy to procrastinate, we forget. And like you said, having people around you that are strong in areas that you're not can really help you to remain consistent. But do you think that maybe we could be better at consistency if we understood our leadership style?
Absolutely, because part of it is understanding our leadership style is also understanding our strengths, our weaknesses, what we do well, what we don't. And so when we understand that, it just kind of helps navigate how we work with other people and how we lead them. And then it also lets you know the gaps. It lets you know the gaps, and you accept those gaps. And you're like, okay, so now that I have these particular gaps, but this is a need maybe your team has expressed, you find who can feel that need so that they still feel like they're being heard, and they still feel like they're being needed, so whatever you need to do to accomplish that. But understanding your leadership style is huge. And part of that too is just understanding within your leadership style, how relational are you as well.
Absolutely. I do think that it helps you to be a better communicator, when you really do understand your leadership style. And I think that it helps you then to set up others for success when you understand how you're actually going to go about doing that,
Yeah. You're right. There's nothing more to add to that one, because you're right. That's totally true.
Yeah. Well, everyone, I hate to say this, but this is the end of episode 4. This has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much, Sophie. I also want to thank all of my previous guests, Paris Cannon and Annette Paschal. Thank you for all of your contribution. All of you ladies made this such a success. Thank you everyone for watching. Please give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, and we'll see what happens in the future with Project She Leads. Until then, lead strong. Bye.
Bye.